Welcome to the Intercut Podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, featuring footage not found in the feature film, it's Arturo Zurita.
Hey, what's up, guys? Art from the A to Z show here. Excited to be back. I was in Cali for a bit, so I know you might not even be able to see me. That's how tan I got.
Tan, so handsome.
I gotta get like 2 more lights putting on here, but I'm glad to be back, talking about the movies and the homecoming of a special superhero that's finally back. Third time's the charm, so let's see if they finally got it right for some people. But yeah.
Yeah, we will get into some homecoming stuff very shortly, but we're also going to talk about news about a Batman trilogy and a potential actor set to return to the MCU. But first, we start the way we start every week. I've been watching the same thing as you, Art.
There we go.
But what you been watching?
We, as I'm pretty sure you guys have been watching Spider-Man Homecoming, The Return, as it says, homecoming to Marvel, Marvel Disney, what people have been waiting for the longest time, but not necessarily Marvel Disney, because they're sharing it. Sony is sharing it with Disney Marvel. There's the famous now interview of your boy Kevin Feige, not knowing that, I forget her name, maybe you know her name from Sony.
Oh, shoot.
Where she revealed, the one whose emails all leaked back in that
Amy Pascal, I believe.
Yeah, Amy Pascal, all her emails that leaked way back in the day. Well, she's super excited because she's like, hey, they signed the
details
deal.
In front of Kevin Feige.
Exactly.
He's a little more coy about what he likes to reveal about the Marvel movies.
She's that person who is like, hey, I'll do you a solid. You can borrow this. And Marvel's like, oh, perfect. We finally get this. And then she's like, but, these movies over here, now we can connect them to the Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you can't touch those because we only gave you one character. And now Kevin Feige's like, oh snap, he's like dating that one girl who he just judged her on her looks. He's like, this looks really nice. Then it turns out to be like this crazy girl
you
who's
get the whole
just gonna take
package
advantage
there.
of you, gonna take your money, gonna take
that's
everything.
What's a little crazy here is like,
Yes.
So this is the now famous deal between Sony and Disney Marvel where Sony would be able to use different Avengers characters, but Spider-Man is part of the MCU, and Kevin Feige can use him in the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
I guess it's mutually beneficial, but you look at Spider-Man Homecoming, I mean, we're going to spoil a bunch of stuff here, but you have cameos, not only the major cameos from Iron Man and Happy, played by Jon Favreau, who's in a lot of these movies, but you have Captain America showing up for a bunch of stuff. You have a bunch of other allusions to the MCU. You're a little better at spotting these than I am.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them in there from the events. Literally, it starts off. They're picking up garbage from the first Avengers.
Oh right, yeah. There's the whole the whole opening, which I found a little bit strange, but I mean, I guess they are trying to update this whole idea of Peter Parker as an aspiring photographer. He sort of is vlogging his experience of joining the
cool.
Captain America Civil War fight. Yeah, I mean, I just found it an odd way into the movie, especially because they did that a film by Peter Parker title card at the front.
Catch off guard there, yeah.
But it was fun, it was cute, and it's modern, and it's definitely so. One of the things that's very clear in this iteration of Spider-Man that they're going for a much younger vibe.
Finally?
Yeah.
Using a 30-year-old?
Yeah, this is, I mean, here you have a very youthful energy, not just in the age of the actors, the look of the actors, but also in the attitude of a lot of these people. The one thing that I thought was a little strange was that you're using Blitzkrieg Bop, which I don't know how many young kids are still listening to that. I mean, I guess I went through a Ramones phase too, so maybe it's just that age that
it comes around. But they're also from New York, so I figured that's why they had used them. And I didn't mind. Hey, I'm not gonna mind it if the Ramones are in a movie.
It's just a little silly to me because nearly everybody in this cast was born after the Ramones happened.
Yeah.
So
I guess they always come back. But I agree with what you're saying about they look like they're teenagers.
And there's an effortless diversity to the movie too, not just in the love interests and Zendaya showing up and his best friend Ned, I think his name was, who's this really fun as his guy on the phone.
Yeah.
or what was it?
Well,
I don't.
he's practically he's a mixture because he's a real character, but at the same time, Miles Morales, who gets mentioned in the movie a bit, Miles Morales has a friend. That is his friend.
Oh, okay. So, he
it's
is
like
canon.
a mix-up. Yeah, well, it's like a
In a way.
mashup of the actual character, like who he's named, the name of him. He is in the comics, but he just kept the name. He took the attitude and everything of the other person. Literally, the whole interaction of meeting, of figuring out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man is practically how he figures out that his buddy Miles Morales is.
Interesting.
So it was like a mixture. So I thought that was pretty cool. But you brought up two things: the usefulness of it. I love the fact that they look like they were young. The crush, 27 years old.
Was she really?
But at least she looks. Yeah, that blows my mind. First of all, but she looks like a teenager. It's not this the boy next door type thing where the man looks like he's 35 years old pretending to be a senior. None of that. She looked her age. Tom Holland looks the age. Zendaya looks the age. I really like the fact that they had the girl from. She reminds me of Margot Robbie Jr., the one from The Nice Guys. I do not know what her name is.
I don't know what her name is either, but I know who
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. But yeah, like you mentioned, Tom Holland's only 21 and Zendaya's 20, and they were, this
But
is
they
a movie they
look
filmed
young.
at least 6 months ago, if not
Exactly.
more. So yeah, it's very, very got that youthful energy. I did think that like maybe it played a little bit into too cheesy into some of the teen comedy aspects. Marissa Tomei has that line about changing bodies, and it's like, that's the kind of thing that like no one wants to hear that. It's not.
But it came from Marissa Tomei, so I give it a pass. I'm the guy in the movie who gave her the free sticky rice, whatever you need, and then you never see him again.
Yeah, you
everyone was flirting with her.
Yeah.
Hey, she's still
I larb her too. I can't blame you for that.
Yeah.
I do think it was a little strange to have her as Aunt May. I didn't think that it necessarily like took me out of the movie. It's just such a contrast to the way that Spider-Man had been presented.
Aunt May. They keep getting younger. I can't wait till Aunt May's just cousin May, and she's like 18-year-olds with them. But with her, I'm cool with that movie that they wanted. Amy Pascal's making her own universe and not letting anybody else know. So if she's the main character, I'm all for it. But in terms of this movie, with the usefulness of it, I saw that, like you mentioned, it's not just with the cast and the story, but the way that it's filmed and edited. The way that it cuts to that, a film by Peter Parker.
There's a briskness to a lot of the
It's a found
things.
footage movie, almost in a sense, for a little bit of it. The way that it cuts to Civil War, and he's just like, vlogging the whole thing of it. It's a Casey Neistat video for a good 10 minutes in the movie.
Yeah.
And then later on, the humor of it. One of my favorite edits is when myself, who is in the movie, your lobby boy, he's playing Flash Gordon, but he's kind of like a nerd.
Yeah.
But also a bully. He's just that preppy kid. That one
the
scene,
dude from Grand Budapest.
Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yes, I forgot his name.
And Dope,
Tony
yeah.
something.
He has that moment where Spider-Man robs his car. And he's just like, no, you don't understand. This is my dad's car. There's no way. Absolutely not that you can't. And then it just cuts to him taking the car. Like those abrupt cuts like that. It was just, I really liked those. I thought those were pretty funny and I kept with it. But then you also brought the diversity aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know myself. I'm a person, I care about quality before diversity.
Yeah, you don't care about the diversity if it's not there for an inorganic reason.
Exactly. I'm not going to support something just to be like, they look like me. They're terrible characters. They're token characters. This is hand-me-downs of another character. Stop. Respect yourself. Come on now. You're better than that. Ask for good quality characters.
I thought this movie had that.
And they had them. My biggest thing was with the Mary Jane character.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a really good character, and it turns out she's just... They played you. They played me on that one.
Yeah.
It's just a sly little thing in there. There's still an opportunity for the redhead version to still come out, but she was a funny character.
Yeah, she was fun, and it was interesting how like kind of secondary to a lot of things.
They didn't overplay her.
They didn't overplay her. They didn't overplay a lot of the relationships in this movie. They really left a lot sort of to the fringes. And one thing that I sort of noted was how much assumed familiarity there is in this movie that the other ones don't have. This is our sixth movie of Spider-Man in 15 years, and they know that. They know we don't need an Uncle Ben story. They know we don't need all those origins. They know that we understand what these iconic images of Spider-Man are. They mention the radioactive spider in passing because everybody knows everybody who's going to go see this movie at least knows what he's talking about. So by passing a lot of those smaller details, I think that the movie stayed entertaining a little bit more. I think it moved very quickly. I do think that the second act was a bit too long and dragged. I kind of, I think there was a good balance, and I liked I actually was thrown by the twist in the third act.
Yeah, so we'll get there. As you know, this is spoilers. We say this in the video. Completely. Spoilers. 100%. And there would have been a little annotation there that you saw, but we're all about spoilers here. You had enough time to watch it. Yeah, that Michael Keaton twist was dope. That caught me off guard. Absolutely did not see that coming. I had a mug. Dropped it. Kevin Spacey style.
It's for me, like I had started to become a little bit disinterested by the movie and checking my watch, and that brought me actually back in.
Boy, I was in recliners. I went, what?
Yep.
That whole sequence up to the whole part with the parked car was fantastic, in my opinion.
So, I mean, I liked the assumed familiarity of it. I do think, and like, there's a couple people saying, like, oh, this movie actually kind of needed an Uncle Ben scene. And like, no, I don't think you need an Uncle Ben scene. I do think that maybe you need some more tension and definition of the stakes. That doesn't have to be an Uncle Ben scene, but it was kind of, the whole movie was this idea of Peter Parker attempting to prove himself to Iron Man to try and like get into the Avengers. And for me, that sort of made it a little more frivolous than I think it could have been. I wasn't as invested in this idea, I think that's part of the reason I grew bored during the middle of the movie. It's like, is there anything bigger going on? Yeah, there's this villain, but even the way that they introduce I like Michael Keaton as the Vulture, or as Birdman, as I call him, his second appearance as Birdman. But I think that the way that the character is written, he feels very villain of the week, if you know what I mean. He feels like somebody who's just in to pose a threat and will not necessarily drastically shift the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, I liked him because, to me, he's my second favorite behind Loki. And my list goes Loki, Vulture. That's it. But to me, I liked him because of his backstory. And you're right. Because of the setup for the twist, they didn't delve in as much in the first half. Then it happens, and it's the momentum that leads up to that moment that goes, ooh, and he's such a good character with such a Breaking Bad story to him that isn't uncovered for you because of the way they had to set up the twist and never show you with his family and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of that comes through Keaton's performance. I think Keaton brings a gravitas here. And similarly, like, you get the right mixture of character and actor with, like you did with Hiddleston and Loki. I think that's what really works here. Less so the presentation of the character, but when you have the way that Keaton will sort of smirk when he calls Spider-Man Pedro. That's all you need from that guy. Like you hear so much in those phrases, in the way he talks to Peter.
I liked his backstory. I thought it was good. Again, the way that in order to set up the twist, you couldn't get too much into it, but the fact that they left him alive shows you that there's going to result in him probably coming back. I thought they were going to go the Spider-Man route and kill him Green Goblin style.
So do you want to talk about the first post-credits scene?
Yeah, we can get into it.
All right, so the first post-credits scene is in prison, and I am not familiar enough with the MCU to know who he's talking to, but Keaton has been locked away, Vulture has been locked away, and he comes across who?
He comes across a guy who's supposed to be the Scorpion. Now he dresses up as a Scorpion. That being said, though, the Vulture in the comics looks like an edition of Toucan Sam that got like completely scrapped. So he looks like a cartoon, like a comic book character. I thought he looked really cool in this movie. I really liked the way that his bird machine looked. That thing, like, that legit scared me. Like, that thing was chopping stuff off. So I believe they're going to do the same thing for the character of Scorpion, and being able to make him like look pretty cool. He's got like venom literally in like the needle thing that he has, but Yeah, I can't remember.
There's like
the
a
actor's
very
name.
like industrial kind of look to it. So I
Yes,
think that's sort of what you're
exactly.
talking about, that like metal industrial.
I think they're gonna make it look cool, not as
Yeah.
cheesy.
It almost
that
sort of
actor,
reminded me of if I don't know if you've played BioShock Infinite.
come on now.
I forget the name of the villain at the end, but or the big mechanical bird. There's
Yeah,
just
that tries to fight you. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. There's
you have to take
there's
it
the same
down.
like rigidness, but also like heaviness to
and
it.
it
That's,
looks cool.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm excited for him specifically, and I mean, we'll get into what it's going to spawn out.
Oh, he's Scorpion. Yes.
The actor, he was in Better Call Saul, but I know him mostly. He did the motion capture and voice for Far Cry 3, for the bad guy in Far Cry 3. And this dude, he's the one on the cover. This dude
Yeah.
is menacing, and I'm glad that he's getting more work, and he needs to be in more stuff. He was fantastic in Better Call Saul. So to have him possibly be a lead in a future installment is dope. But what it also leads to is that interaction in the post-credit scene is he tells Michael Keaton, I heard a rumor that you know who it is. Michael Keaton says, no, if I did, he'd be dead. I guess he saved my life, so I guess that's why he's letting me go.
Yeah.
Or
They
hoping that he
established
doesn't-
that kind of like moral code where like,
Yeah.
oh, you saved me,
You did
so
me
I'll
one,
give
I'll
you a
give you
break. And he seems to be like protecting Peter a little bit.
I
But
saw it as
it is-
selfish, because he's probably like, if I tell you Peter, and Peter's hanging out with my girl, then you're gonna probably hurt my girl on the way. I saw it as that too.
True. And there is sort of like a hint there that he maybe wants to get back at Peter
And
himself.
he is.
It's almost a reference to the second post-credits scene, which is at the very, very end when Captain America shows up for another one of those PSAs, and he talks about the virtue of patience and how sometimes you wait around and you wait, and the thing you get isn't as good as you thought it would be. How it's not everything you've been waiting for. It's a sort of in-joke about the nature of these post-credits scenes, about how you ask the audience to sit there and wait for little morsels of information. But I think it also even references the previous post-credits scene, which seems to indicate that, like, yeah, there is more to this MCU, but maybe Scorpion isn't gonna show up. Maybe it is going to kind of just not mean that much in the greater MCU.
Hey, it
They're
better.
just letting you know that they're thinking of it too.
Maybe Kevin Feige doesn't want it to be, but Amy Pascal's gonna make it happen.
She'll announce it soon.
Well, the thing being is that I believe they still have that Sinister Six movie, and Sinister Six, if you don't know, is like a team up of evil villains that go after Spider-Man, and Scorpion, he's a part of that.
Right.
And I think that they're still gonna try to make that alongside the Venom movie, so chances are he might be coming back.
Yeah.
None of that means anything to me.
It's possible. The other thing is, like, I don't know if this actor is necessarily famous enough to be the big villain in the next movie. You know, they got to go from Michael Keaton to him, whose name I'm not sure
mean,
of. But
I guess,
I would be down for him to be one of several villains.
I'm
but
down
we'll
for
see.
him to do it, but to me, there's the one thing that really stuck out to me. There's a little cameo that happens in the movie, and it was actually in some trailers. And when this person came out, I had no idea about it. Got kind of spoiled for me, but I thought, oh, those are just rumors. Those are just something else. I didn't want to believe it, and then it happened, and I saw him come out. I was like, stay woke. When Donald Glover came out, my heart skipped a beat. I didn't know why he
the
was
people
playing.
next to me were like, "Wait, who's that? It's Childish, the rapper guy. Yeah, Childish Gambino.
Yeah,
He's on Community.
That guy, the comedian, yeah.
Shut
Dude.
the fuck up."
To me, I loved it. For those of you who don't know, there was a whole campaign to get Donald Glover to play Spider-Man, and then the character of Miles Morales in the comic books, which again is the perfect example of not just making Peter Parker black, but creating another character on his own, coming from like a bad part of town, who looks up to Peter Parker. And in the comics, Peter Parker dies, and he takes the mantle with a different suit to play a new Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And he's half black, half Puerto Rican. And they modeled the character of Miles Morales after Barack Obama and Childish Gambino. And when they made the animated series, which is really good, that was revolved around Miles Morales, they had Childish Gambino voice for
Donald
two
Glover.
episodes. Yeah.
Yes.
Donald Glover, dang it. It's just I downloaded all his albums as Childish Gambino to
Right.
listen on the way to Cali, so it's still there for me. But yeah, people were still campaigning for him when this reboot came out for it to be him. But I was like, he's too old. And when I
Yeah.
heard that the cameo was coming, I didn't want to pay attention too much to it. And then I see him, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be more to it. It can't just be a little thing. And he can't be Miles Morales. And
Yeah,
he's
that-
acting a little bit too much like a gangster. And I'm like, is this his character from Atlanta? What's going on here? And then when they said his name, and he mentions his little nephew, Miles Morales' uncle is a bad guy
Oh,
who
I didn't know that.
accidentally brings a spider when he's robbing a lab, and he brings the radioactive spider back home, and that ends up biting Miles Morales, and that's how he becomes Spider-Man. That's how he gets his abilities. But eventually, he reforms. He's known as the Prowler as well, and he ends up working with Peter Parker. But when I heard that, I was like, that is genius, because he's too old. He's
Yeah.
too old to, and they did such
And
a
he's
fantastic
got
job with
all this
yeah.
other stuff going on. I want him to do more Atlanta. He
Exactly.
doesn't need to be
But
a
that-
teenage Miles Morales.
That won me over, and I'm like, whoever you get to be Miles Morales, please. He's canon now.
I was underwhelmed by the first scene that Donald Glover was in.
Yeah, it was short.
Because I thought, oh, that's it. I heard about this cameo, and he's just the other gangster in that
Yeah,
scene.
really. Gangster number 2.
But coming back, it was a much more memorable scene, the second one, and then
Yeah.
you actually get to hear his name, how he figures
Yeah.
into the greater universe. That's a really cool Easter egg.
Those are the Easter eggs I like, where it's not just like, hey, look at this. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, that was a cool character, though. That's a cool
Exactly.
Easter egg, but
he
I like
justified being there, even if he
It was a
isn't
funny
an Easter
scene.
egg character.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a good scene.
it wasn't Wonder Woman just looking through files.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Overall, though, did you find this movie satisfying? There's a lot of hope pinned on this movie on behalf of Sony.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about the future of Spider-Man in the MCU and beyond in our topic of the week. But this movie on its own, did it succeed? Are you happy with it? Do you think it's good enough, or is it just
I think
okay?
it's a very good movie. I don't think it is better than my personal favorite, which is Spider-Man 2. I think Spider-Man 2 is revolutionary. I love everything about Spider-Man 2, even the cheesiness. I believe it still holds up. I was very skeptical about this movie. I really liked Tom Holland in Civil War. I wasn't sure what how John Watts was going to be as a director, especially with his other 2 movies, Cop Car and Clown. But I think he pulled through. I think that there's a cut out there that might be even better. Because some edits were like, okay, this is funny. We're going some they were very visual on some of the cuts that I thought were hilarious, very subtle, not all up in your face. There's one where Zendaya where they're all waving and Zendaya goes, and then he pulls out the middle finger, like little things like that I was just like, okay, there's a cut here where they didn't let some of these things slip through. I want to see that, and it's gonna make me like the movie even more. It's a movie.
Yeah, they definitely were skirting on that PG-13
Penis Parker?
rating.
Yeah.
There's Penis Parker. The last line of the movie, getting it.
Yeah, and then cutting away with it. Yeah,
getting cut off.
I like those.
Yeah, they definitely. I feel like
There's
they
a
must have
lot
had
more
a
of it,
few
yes.
other can we get away with
and they're
this?
like, no,
that
no,
they
no.
probably
He's like, don't
ended
give
up
me more of
leaving on
those
the cutting
abrupt
room
cuts. We've
floor.
already given you 10 of those. Yeah, but it's one of those movies that the more I sit with it, the more I want to see it again, and I really enjoyed it.
So that's interesting because I'm actually right now, and granted, this is in the 16 hours post having seen it. I'm feeling the opposite in that, I don't really feel like I need to see it again. I thought it was satisfying enough. I enjoyed about 80% of the movie, and I thought that you want there to be a reason to revisit these characters if they're going to go through with a reboot, and I felt like it justified its existence. But I did think there was kind of a frivolity to some of it, in that not just beyond it being a superhero thing. I just that it didn't really. All of this being ultimately kind of so Tony, am I in? And then ending with him sort of walking away from the Avengers, at least for now. I think that I'm going to forget more and more of this movie as I get away from it. And while I appreciate elements of it, and I liked Tom Holland's performance a lot, it didn't really provide me any of the big action set pieces or memorable shots even that I think some of the other best superhero movies
Yeah.
or even best Spider-Man movies do. So I'm a little mixed on it. I enjoyed it, and if you like Spider-Man, I feel like you should see it. But I can't say it's like a great
I feel
movie.
that. I think it's very hard to top a lot of the scenes, like the train scene from Spider-Man 2. They just can mimic it. You know, they got the same stuntmen from the original Spider-Man movies. But
Oh yeah.
to me, I'm glad they didn't go over the top with the set pieces. And to me, it was more of a character arc. I enjoyed that. The whole idea. I can see how you didn't like it. To me, by the end of it, I kind of saw where it was going, and I'm like, okay, it's cool. There's an interview out there where they're talking about that the story arc for Peter Parker is going to span throughout all these movies. Supposed to be like a 5-movie story arc where he comes in and he's not just a cameo. It's adding to pieces of a bigger story that's going to wrap up somewhere. It's confusing to me, but I like what I'm hearing about it, that they have an overall story, so I guess you can piece his cameos together and it's going to create something. But I like the idea of what Iron Man tells him. We see him as, he wants to be an Avenger, he wants to be an Avenger, he wants to be an Avenger, he needs the suit, and Iron Man tells him at one point, if you're nothing without the suit, then you're a nobody. And the whole idea was for him to realize that, I know it's cheesy, alright? I know it's cheesy, but this is what Peter Parker's supposed to be. It's something we haven't gotten in a while, right? All the other Peter Parkers, they've been too old, and again, I love Toby, but the whole, I break up with you. No, I break up with you, Peter. I didn't need any of that, alright? It's always been focusing on a girl. My man's finally focusing on himself. And the whole scene, I know it was a little cheesy, but for those of us who are comic geeks, we know that iconic scene where he gets up from the rubble. It's a huge comic moment in Spider-Man's arc, and they had that here. It's not as good as the comic book. It's not, but because it's kind of cheesy when he finally gets up, he sees himself half in the water, and he comes and that's when he has the realization that it's within him. And he realizes that he doesn't need to be an Avenger. He just needs to be that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I geeked out. I understand what you're saying. I liked it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's a fun movie. That's the one thing we can agree on. It is a fun movie.
Totally.
And I enjoyed it for that.
Totally. And I'm not trying to be that guy, but I do think it's at least interesting to note that we have so many of these superhero movies set in New York, and still this manages to get a plane hijacking imagery and buried beneath the rubble imagery.
I saw that. I was like, get that plane out of there. What were you thinking?
Yeah, Ooh. Like, they always skirt up on this line of, like, this is evoking national tragedies, but sometimes they do it better than others, and this was one where it felt like a little, I don't know, facetious to
Hey, but they played
whatever.
They played the Ramones, so
yeah. So it's from New
Overall,
York.
I say watch it in theaters. I enjoyed it for that. I'm looking forward to watching it again.
And yeah, I think if you're the type of person who's interested in watching it in theaters, you should. You know, like it's not. There's nothing here that is going to convince you otherwise. But if you're not super eager to see it, like it's not that movie either. But I like Tom Holland, so I think that hopefully this franchise has the potential to put out a special movie in the future. We move on to Yay or Nay, our weekly segment where we get into the latest in the entertainment industry, but we're not going far, sticking with some Spider-Man news. What's old is new again, because fans are voicing concerns about some of Spider-Man's misleading marketing. Tell me if you've heard this one, Art. Some shots featured in the commercials, including a shot of Spider-Man and Iron Man soaring over Queens, did not actually appear in the final cut of the film. This is sort of reminiscent of the frustrations fans had over Amazing Spider-Man marketing that seemed to suggest fights and sequences that didn't ultimately end up in the movie. So, Art, are you yay or nay on Spider-Man leaving some of this footage out of the final film?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't want to say this and someone go back and be like, you hypocrite. It's a case-by-case basis. Other movies do it where they just completely omit things where it's like, whoa, like this seems like a big story element. Like this was supposed to lead up to something bigger. This isn't just a shot. This is a scene that was out. Or it marketed something that was like, wait a minute, this element of the movie, be it humor, whatever emotion was supposed to evoke, was not in the movie. I'm upset.
Right.
We saw him in Spider-Man. It just wasn't that shot, but we still got that same thing. And the beauty of it is that, as a director, going back to a little bit of the review, John Watts is dope, dude. Hearing him talk, this man adored his job. He went in there and he took it seriously. And the way that he described some of the shots that weren't in the trailer, he said they were never meant to be in the movie. He's like, this wasn't something that, like, didn't make it. Like, it was meant for
Yeah.
Comic-Con.
One quote that I read is that he talked about how they wanted a shot of both Iron Man and Spider-Man in the trailer for the
cool with
purposes
that.
of marketing. But one of the sequences, I think it was the only sequence that they had to pull from, was the sequence in the movie where they're
Yeah.
outside the ferry, the Staten Island ferry. If you've seen the movie, you know. But they said that none of the shots really showed them together in a way that really was clear. So they
fine.
made a shot for marketing purposes. What's different than doing that for a
Yeah.
movie poster? People aren't like,
Yeah,
wait,
wait a
that
minute.
image wasn't in
They
the
weren't
movie.
all together with
So
floating
yeah,
heads on the
I'm
top.
yay on
What is going on here?
Exactly. I'm yay on them leaving footage of the. I mean, if filmmakers were beholden to like everything in a trailer has to appear in a movie, like what are we getting, like coming soon title
That needs to
cards
be
in a
on my-
movie
I
or
need
something
that
like that?
July
It-
release
it's-
date.
there's a little bit of we live in a modern era
want to
where
complain.
advertising is very there's lots of crazy different ways that people advertise. You have to be aware that not everything you see is going to be 100% the way it is. I agree with you. There
Yeah, there
are
is
cases
bad
where I think it's a
marketing.
little misleading. I personally thought that the way that Amazing Spider-Man 2 misled people was a problem, because like it seems to so clearly indicate you're going to see something that then does
No,
not.
yeah, that was a straight up cop out right there. But with this one, I'm
Right.
always yay. We've talked about this before. I will always be yay when a filmmaker is putting extra work to create something to draw you into the movie.
Exactly, and this is also, that means it's one less thing that's been spoiled
Yes,
for you
spoiled
too.
for you. They went out of their way to create extra stuff,
Totally.
put extra work to get you into the movie. I will always be for that. Always.
While promoting War of the Planet of the Apes, director Matt Reeves commented that he's got some ideas for a Batman trilogy. He mentioned that he has ideas for an arc that would take place across a series of films. So, Art, I want to know, are you yay or nay on Reeves plotting 2 or 3 Batman movies ahead into the future?
Name me a bad Matt Reeves song.
Okay, that's not what I
Bad.
was expecting you to say. Fine.
I like Matt Reeves a lot.
Okay.
A lot. I really like this man. I've not been able to see War of the Planet of the Apes, but boy, do I already have a video ready for that one, because I don't want to use the word perfect, but as perfect as you can get, that feels like this trilogy that's about to wrap up right here. I trust this man.
Mm-hmm.
I trust this man with my future children. I trust this man with any plans for Batman. And if this man is building an arc, I like what I'm hearing.
You're on that
because
arc.
then-
He's your Noah.
Yes, I'm for it.
Sorry.
I'm the first one on the 2x2. I'm getting on that bad boy because that means that he's creating a story. My only worry with it is that we've talked about this. I don't want any installment to feel unfinished.
Right.
That would be my only thing. But the Apes movies haven't.
Yeah.
And it feels like if he creates this, it's going to feel like momentum from movie to movie. It's going to feel like a purpose from movie to movie. And we're going to have callbacks to... And it sounds juicy to me. If he's creating something that at the end of it, we're going to be like, oh my goodness, it all wraps up perfectly. Yes, let's go.
Man, you're making it real hard to go nay on this one.
Dude, how is... come on.
All right, look, you argued that well. I'm going nay.
Wrong.
I
Fake news.
I need to be interested in a Batman movie before I'm sold
And
on
you will.
3. Look, if he's as good as he's been, then fine. I'm totally there for them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's just been in this movie going through the process of changing hands and changing voices, and the DC universe
Yeah.
going really
Worries
dark
me a
and
bit,
less dark, and sort of not really seeming to figure out its way. I mean, I do think Matt Reeves is a hopeful, authoritative voice to bring into the fold.
Yeah.
I want him to worry about one movie, though. That's my concern, is one movie.
I understand you 100%. I think, though, that he is focusing on that one movie. But he's focusing right now on the ability to be able to create an entire arc.
Yeah. My only argument would be, we just talked about Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think it was good. I think the potential for more is there within the franchise. I think
For sure.
it's possible that they could have made a better first movie. I'm hoping that
Okay.
he can do the most with the first movie. I mean, my second,
I think
my
he will.
favorite movie in the previous Batman trilogy was the second one, and I'm just kind of hoping that like we don't have to wait for sequels to get the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's my only concern here.
No, and I'm 100% with that. That's why I stopped myself while I was explaining it. But knowing him, I think he
Yeah.
will do it. And it's I think of it sort of like
Apes
a
is
season
a-
when we see a really good season of a show, and we're like, oh, we want more, and we go, oh, they focused really
Right.
hard on that first season. They forgot to plan the other ones, and they make you know what I
Dexter
mean.
syndrome.
You kind of play, yeah, you know what I mean. You're kind of playing
Yeah.
that both hand where it's like focus all on one season, and then
His
they get
work
greenlit for a
on-
sequel, and he didn't have it prepared.
His work on the Apes movies is a really good counter argument, though. I can't really.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it goes like that. I can be wrong, but and I don't want to think about it a lot because I don't want to get myself too overhyped with DC movies, be disappointed. But the more I think about it, Matt Reeves has the potential to be the director who may create one of the best Dark Knight movies of all time. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to think about it too much. But I'm yay on it.
Having not been in an MCU movie since 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, Deadline is now reporting that Sam Jackson might co-star in
it's been a
the
while.
upcoming Captain Marvel film
Yeah.
with Brie Larson. That movie is set for a 2019 release date, so it would return Nick Fury to the fold. Art, are you yay or nay on MCU circling back to Sam Jackson's character?
Dude, of course. I like the fact that they gave him a little hiatus. You cannot appreciate a character unless they take a little bit time off, and then they come back, and then you go, "Hey, it's Sam Jackson as Nick Fury." I am all for the idea because I think it's going to help tie in Miss Marvel to the rest of the cinematic universe, and no better person to do it than Nick Fury himself. I think that movie in particular is going to be a big deal because this is their Wonder Woman. This is Marvel's first time, even though they've had Black Widow in the background for the longest time, that they're going, you know what? We're finally going to give a female superhero their own movie. And coming off of Wonder Woman, they got a lot of things that they need to build towards because Wonder Woman was a huge hit. But more so, I think that Brie Larson, and I know you're a big fan of Brie Larson.
Yes, I am.
As I am growing after every movie, a fan of her, a fan of her role, a fan of everything of hers. So if you can add as much support to really elevate her, I think you have yourself a big hit. Wonder Woman was fantastic, and I love Gal Gadot, Dot, whatever you want to call her last name. But Brie Larson is an actress.
Yeah, and
Brie Larson is a class act. So if you can create a great story around a great actress, watch out.
yeah, I mean, I'm yay too because I do think Sam Jackson is actually one of the probably the most talented actors that has been
Effortless.
attached to this whole Avengers
Yeah.
wider universe. So if you're talking about someone as good as Brie Larson, I'm all in favor of putting as much talent on the screen with her as possible.
And they work together. Kong.
There we go.
And they like each other.
It's like you mentioned though. I do think it's kind of interesting that they did kind of give him a break. I know there's more to the story than that, but
Yeah, there's a reason for it. but-
it's. I don't think we need to see all these characters in every single one of these movies.
No.
I like not seeing Hulk for a movie and then him showing up in Thor or Iron Man being important.
Thor?
and so-
Ah!
yeah, I remembered your trailer stance and got worried for a second there.
There's a Thor movie?
But
No, but yeah,
Yeah,
you build the anticipation to see him.
exactly. So and he's always been one of the more dynamic presences too in this universe. So I'm glad he both has been away and is coming back. So
Yeah.
I'm yay on this story. Ava DuVernay is set to direct a 5-episode miniseries for Netflix. It is on the Central Park Five, who were the subject of a 2012 Ken Burns documentary, if you have seen that. This is following her work on the Oscar-nominated film The 13th. That documentary did well for Netflix, so DuVernay is back on the streaming platform to make this series about the wrongly convicted group of young men who would later be proven innocent. Are you yay or nay on Ava DuVernay making this Netflix show?
I've yet to see 13th just because it's been on the back burner, as many shows. It's not like 13th. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other shows like Fargo,
is really
Leftover, a
crowded.
bunch of things. It's just too much. So I do want to see it. It's not like I'm keeping it out on purpose. There's a bunch of things I need to catch up on. But I think Ava DuVernay is talented. I think she's got some sass on her. Like she is going to tell the story she wants to tell, and I respect the heck out of that. And I'm a fan of miniseries. I'm a fan of being able to flesh something out. And you said it's 5 episodes?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Like, you know my rule. Like, 10 to me is the most it should be. 5?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to jam-pack these episodes to be the best they possibly can be. It sounds like an intriguing story. I mean, I personally have been waiting for, and I always forget his name, Edelman, I believe is his name, who made the OJ documentary.
Ezra Edelman, yes.
Yes, I'm just waiting for his next thing because these real life stories that are like larger than life have really intrigued me, and I've been waiting for his thing. And this sounds like something in the same vein from someone who is not going to take any flack from any producer or anything else and tell the story she wants to tell.
Totally.
So, dude, I'm for
I'm
it.
definitely yay on this too. 13th was an excellent documentary, and I think Netflix played a key role in helping to get that made. That we've seen with Okja recently, and with a lot of the other big buys that Netflix has made of Scorsese's new movie, and we just talked about Dan Gilroy's new movie last week. You know, Netflix is putting money behind these projects. I feel like, you know, this is going to be a vision that is fully sought through this platform, and she's the type of filmmaker to do these. I mean, you know, with Selma, we saw her ability to kind of give a vitality to a period piece, not just have it feel like stodgy and of an older period. I really liked her work on Selma. So I think, you know, Central Park 5 is going to take place when the case took place, which I believe was early 1990s. So it will also be a little bit of a period piece itself. It does touch on some racial issues. Oddly, Donald Trump plays a big role in the case of the Central Park Five because he was. So this was about I want to say it was a rape and murder in Central Park where these 5 men were arrested for it, and he was through the tabloids advocating for the death penalty for these guys who later turned out to be innocent. So aside from her taking a little bit of a swipe at Donald Trump in the 13th, I anticipate that it'll be an even bigger swipe against Donald Trump in this series, considering he'll probably still be president, we think, when this show comes
played
out.
by Baldwin.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot here. You know, this has the potential to be a really, really interesting show, and she's a very talented filmmaker, so I'm glad to see it happen. And our final yay or nay of the day is a potential Baby Driver sequel. It's only been a week or so since the $21 million opening weekend for the $34 million budgeted Baby Driver. That's enough that Sony is revving up hype around a potential sequel. Edgar Wright admitted as much when he mentioned that Sony asked him to think about writing one. And the filmmaker, despite having never before made a sequel, appears to be interested. So are you interested in more of the same from Edgar Wright?
No. What did he officially say? Do you by any chance have what he said?
Because
I remember I was reading through it a bit, and you know, it's not about Sony pushing it. And I feel like there's always sequel talk for everything.
Yeah. So the quote that
like Selma comes out. There's a talk for a Selma 2. There's a 12 Years a Slave 2. Like there's always sequel talks for something, no matter what it is.
So the quote that Empire has is, "The studio have asked me to think about writing a sequel, and it is one of the ones that I might do a sequel to because I think there's somewhere more to go with it in terms of the characters. Baby has got to a new place."
I made a video, but there is a specific. I sat through. I don't want to say something like it's a bad thing. I watched the Cornell Trilogy.
Endured every Edgar Wright material out there.
What's it called? Clockwork Oranged myself. Put tape on my eyeballs. I listened to all of them with commentaries as well, and he has one with Quentin Tarantino for Hot Fuzz.
Really? I didn't know that.
And he specifically mentions, Tim and Tarantino, and they just go at it. They're nerds. They are nerds. I love it, but they're nerds.
Yeah.
And he specifically mentions why he doesn't do sequels. He says that his movies are all about characters, and that by the end of the movie, they have completed their character arc. And he says that that's what, going back to what we're worried about with the 3-story thing, that it's going to feel incomplete. But the reason why I think his movies are so effective is because he completes his characters by the end of the movie. They're complete.
Yeah.
So he mentions the problem with sequels is that they complete a character arc, and that's what makes the first movie so good that they want to greenlit the sequel. Then you realize, why are all the people from The Hangover making the same mistake if they learned their lesson from the first
Exactly.
one? It's dumb.
Yeah.
Why are they, and he mentions that, so it would be completely dumb because Baby finishes his arc. You can't even make it an anthology because Baby Driver is based off of him.
Yeah. That's the thing, a sequel inherently either has to do the same thing, in which case it'll likely be a worse version, or it has to do something different, in which case, why is it even a sequel?
Exactly.
I mean, I get that Edgar Wright is a great filmmaker, so I want to just go with him on whatever.
I think he's trolling because he said he would never do it.
Yeah, it does not really seem like his style. It does not necessarily seem like something he'd do. I also just, personally, if he's going to do a sequel, I want it to be one of the ones with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I'm sorry. I just care much more about those movies than Baby Driver. So, I don't know. I got to go nay, and it's weird for me to go nay on anything Edgar Wright, but this is, it's not... I think there are better ways for him to spend his time than more of this, which he did it. It was great. Let's get more, because everything he does is novel and amazing.
Yeah. I see no reason to do it. The man completed his arc with Baby. Make a new Baby.
So it's time for our topic of the week, and we circle back to Spider-Man Homecoming, which is on movie viewers' minds after a big weekend at the box office. It's clear that Sony has a new big franchise on their hands. It has general critical approval. It's not good. It doesn't seem like we're headed towards an Amazing Spider-Man situation where they're going to have to try and reshuffle the deck or something like that. This seems to be a steady enough franchise going forward. So, Art, I'm curious, what have you heard about Sony's plans for the future of this franchise, and how excited are you for them?
Again, I had a lot of skepticism going into Spider-Man Homecoming. I ended up enjoying it a lot. I was worried that it was going to kind of like take a misstep. I think the main focus that they need to get is hiring directors who can handle the material and know what they're doing.
Yeah, so John Watts, the guy who they chose for...
The main reason why it's a good movie.
Spider-Man Homecoming, despite the fact that he had just only directed 2 pretty obscure indies, one of which Cop Car is a lot of fun, but he seems to be a great pull, but he hasn't been confirmed to come back for the next one, even though Tom Holland has suggested as much.
I think it's one of those things where you should keep them because there's a dynamic building there, and you set a tone that people are liking, and it's very hard to hit that tone. As you can tell, they tried it with Amazing Spider-Man. They did not hit it. Mm-hmm. That's why they had to reboot. Mm-hmm. And they left all those strings, as you would say, all those webs open that didn't go anywhere. So with this one, they're successful. I do not see why you would change the formula. I see the same thing over with Deadpool, with the whole debacle that happened with the director leaving from the first one. It's just like, that was magic. Do you not see the miracle? You don't believe in God. I don't care, but that was a miracle that happened for you, for that rated R movie to hit the way it did, for everything, the marketing to come together. I'm worried that this clash between Disney and Sony, as we're already seeing. Disney really wanted Spider-Man, and they made a deal with the devil to get him, and now Sony's over here like, ha ha ha, now we can just say that we know you.
Right.
Sony right now is Ned, the fat friend from the movie, who just wants to tell everyone that they know Spider-Man and keeps ruining it, and wants to use this connection that he knows about Spider-Man to be able to do things and be able to get attention, and he just doesn't know that he was a buffoon in the movie. And I hope that Sony doesn't act like a buffoon in real life and does things to mess it up. Because Feige is a man who knows the ending of this. This man has a room with everything Marvel already set out.
Right.
And I feel like Sony's coming in, and if they create something, it's kind of canon in this web he's already created, and that's gotta scare the heck out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is some sort of collaboration in terms of like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, but it does sort of, I guess, veer on the edge of danger when you think about, okay, so Disney has all these people to play with. They don't need to do an Iron Man movie every year or a Captain America movie every year because they've got all these things in their rotation. But
They keep growing.
But Sony doesn't have access to all that. Like you mentioned, there's plans for this potential Sinister Six movie, and they could do a bunch of stuff in that direction. Or there's the potential for the Venom movie that we've discussed on the show before.
Or the Aunt May movie, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily. I don't think, despite all the hinting and suggesting at larger universes here, that a lot of this material necessarily calls for like urgently needs a movie. I hope that they wait for people that have the talent that a guy like John Watts apparently has to at least bring some kind of energy and unique vision. I just feel like the last time that Sony tried to like force one of these franchises, it blew up in their face, and just casting a bunch of people, casting Paul Giamatti and saying, "Oh, he'll come back later," like that didn't happen. So I'm a little skeptical about the future of this franchise, especially because how kind of jokey and kind of fast paced a lot of it is. I'm almost worried about, do they lean too hard into that? Do they try too hard at some point to like evoke all these branches when when we had the previous Spider-Man franchises, or at least, let's disregard Amazing because we're not talking about it. When Raimi had his franchise, it was just about concentrating on this vision of the world, and there weren't as many threads dangling. And like I mentioned in our review, like I'd like them to really hone in on a good Spider-Man movie because there is potential there, and I'm worried if they look too far out. I am curious though. Have you heard about whether or not Spider-Man will continue showing up in some other Marvel films? I don't know if that's been confirmed.
Well, I called up Feige the other day, and he was like, yeah, I'll tell you all our top secrets. Send me a picture of his map. Marvel films as in Disney Marvel?
Yeah.
Well, there's the whole idea. I can't remember if it was Feige or somebody else who brought up the. See, I think Spider-Man, they got down.
Right.
I believe that because what they said was that they have he's going to be in Infinity War. He's going to be he's going to have a sequel that's confirmed. We just don't know who's directing it, but they have talked about having an arc. Again, going back to something we were talking about, having arcs in superheroes in where he's got like a 5-film deal, Tom Holland does, so he's going to appear at least 5 more times, and what they're saying is that all of that is supposed to piece together to create a story arc, that by the end of it you put all these little cameos together, including the 2 full movies that he has, and it's going to reach something. And as we talked about with the movie, the main thing that they have, and I know one of your concerns is this whole idea of he's part of a bigger universe. Will they be able to focus in on Spider-Man?
Right.
And I think while this one may not have worked for you, worked a bit more for me, the whole story arc of him focusing on himself. You don't have that Mary Jane or that Gwen Stacy who's there, like focusing in on him. And maybe the Zendaya Michelle character feels more like a partner to help him than that annoying love interest who's like, you didn't show up to my whatever. I break up with you, Peter. The annoying stuff.
Yeah.
And the idea that the final result at the end of it, where what happened, again, a little bit spoilers, but he makes a decision to not do what you were afraid of that would have to connect them to this whole bigger universe. So I think that decision is key into what you want. They've already created a world where Spider-Man legit walks down the streets and gives directions to an old lady.
Yeah.
They've created a world in where Spider-Man can just chill, and they are taking advantage of the fact that superheroes are. It's been a decade. They exist in this world. Spidey, do your thing. And there's hints here and there, but I think that there will be a Spidey movie for you. Yeah, because of the way that they set it up. They're going to focus in on him. I truly believe that they're taking the good route of not having him be this Avenger character, and they're going to focus in on him.
I agree, and it's definitely good. Like, I think the whole idea of having Tony Stark, Iron Man, so involved in this movie was kind of, the Disney Marvel co-sign. It's like, no, this one's good. We like this version of Spider-Man. And now that all the fans have seen it and it's doing fairly well, it seems, at least in terms of box office and reviews, that they can now, like you said, hopefully hone in on the character in a way that'll be good. Like I mentioned
they
it
will.
earlier in our discussion, my favorite of the Chris Nolan Batman movies was the sequel when they were able to like ignore the origins and really hone in on the character, not only the character but the villains. So I'm hoping that that is the way that this franchise heads. I am excited for more Spider-Man. It's just the more that they concentrate on the ancillary aspects is the less excited I get.
I think it'll get there because it's at a point in where, look at, a lot of people in my theater during the screening were gasping at moments that were homages to Raimi's. I mean, you're at a point where, we talk about this all the time, how different can you make it when we've already, he can't come out. Every time they reveal the suit, I'm like, I mean, there's so many variations of the suit you can do.
Yeah.
So it's like they're trying to show, like, whoa, he has to be excited for the suit. Us as viewers are like, we've seen this.
Yeah.
I get you have to be excited, but we've seen this. And I like that this newer one was just like, we're going to try to make it as different as possible, but when we can just pass through things, because you already know it, we won't. You know Uncle Ben died. We ain't going to show you for a third time his bloody body. You know he ain't got parents. You know all of these different aspects. You know the whole Mary Jane thing, and we're just going to like, he gets bit by a spider.
Yeah.
All these things. And they're trying to focus on different things, making him younger. I like the whole thing they did with the suit. With the suit and being able to have, it felt like a video game when he upgraded all these different things that he does. I thought that was pretty
did
cool.
like the aspect, the way that he interacted with the suit and stuff. That was
so for the first time, exactly, because he can't be swinging around and us going, whoa, that's so, look at how he swings. Yeah, we've seen that, so it had to be something different. I thought that was a good way to do it, but on top of that, like you mentioned, the sequel, I believe, is when they're going to be able to focus in on things, because this is, again, it was called Homecoming. They know what it was. It's just trying to bring him back, trying to get everyone used to it. You guys have seen 3 different Spider-Mans in 15 years. And with the sequel, I honestly believe that they're setting up to something really fantastic. But that is going to be where they are able to make it more of their own, because the scene where he comes down and he's about to kiss, when the AI tells him to kiss, which, first of all, do you know who voiced that AI?
I don't. Was that Jennifer Connelly?
Jennifer Connelly,
okay,
Boyd.
I
know
just
you
saw
a
a
big
headline.
fan.
I just saw a
Yes.
headline about like Jennifer Connelly's cameo.
What's funny about that is, who's Jennifer Connelly's husband?
Oh, that's actually pretty funny.
That is really, they're
Paul
both
Bettany.
AIs in the Marvel
Yeah.
Cinematic Universe.
I like that.
It's like the couple who works together.
Yeah.
They literally work. They go clock in at the same time.
Yep.
But yeah, that moment where he's like, "Kiss her. This is your moment to kiss her." We all know what that is. It's
Right.
alluding to the famous kiss.
Yeah.
The whole trying to stop the
Pull
ferry. It's
yeah.
alluding to the train in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are already there that they're referencing to. But I believe the sequel is gonna make things that years from now, that's what it's gonna be referenced to.
What you're giving me is the Force Awakens argument. What you're giving me is they had to make this movie.
I got nothing right now.
for
Okay,
the
that's all I
fans
can give you.
to get to the rest of them. And
No,
like,
what you're-
look, that's
what you're-
fine, but I just want to see the rest of it.
They'll be here, and you know what? The Force Awakens wasn't bad.
It wasn't.
But that's actually
I
that's
liked
actually a good
Force
way to put
Awakens.
it. That's actually a really good way to put it. The Homecoming is kind of like the Force Awakens of this.
Yeah, yeah.
The Home Awakens.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I am with this Spider-Man. I mean, I do think that there was an epicness to those first 2 Raimi movies that's just not there with these Spider-Man movies. I don't know if that's because
Different landscape. Different landscape.
it's a
There
different
wasn't-
landscape.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because it's trying too hard to fit in with everything, and like I mentioned earlier, it does have a little bit of that like villain of the week vibe to me. It feels episodic rather than epic, but I did enjoy this one more than most of the Spider-Man things that we've gotten recently, at least.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely there for the next one. Like I will
Yeah.
want to see the next one in the theaters.
I liked
Any
it.
last
I
thoughts?
enjoyed it. I'm hoping that the sequel builds it up even more, so people like yourself can like it. I hope an artsy director directs it and it goes straight. It's shot in 35 millimeter. My biggest worry, just as yours, is that I hope they focus in on the character. The arc seems to be doing that. My biggest concern is just Sony. I trust in Disney. I just hope Sony doesn't mess it up and try to do things with the Venom movie, with the Sinister Six movie. I hope Miles Morales becomes a thing, as this movie
Yeah.
had. We see his uncle in there, played by Childish Gambino. Hopefully something comes out of that. I hope to see Miles Morales in the future. A Spidey death would kind of be crazy.
Yeah.
But that might lead into Miles Morales coming in. That would... Spider-Man's death in an Infinity War thing would be a pretty huge thing, and then Miles Morales comes up. I don't know, that's possibly there, but I'm trusting in the story arc that they have for Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Well,
If Sony messes it up by trying to make it something more grand, that worries me.
Well, I look forward to discussing the next Spider-Man with you when it's inevitably directed by Trey Edward Schultz or somebody like that.
Let's go!
We go to New
all a
to
nightmare.
See, our final segment of the day, where we discuss what's new in theaters, streaming, and elsewhere, hitting box offices this weekend. There's one big movie out there, and I'm desperate to see it. I know Art's desperate to see it. It's War for the Planet of the Apes. Apes on horses, as they've mentioned on
Is that
other
next week?
YouTube shows. Well, that's this Friday when you consider we're publishing on Tuesday.
Oh, okay, then it is. Whoa, I'm excited! I can't believe it.
Whoa, I can't
got my
believe it.
ticket
It's
for that
3
thing.
days from now, except
Yeah.
it's a
Like
week.
I've said it, this is one of the... It's very rare for me to buy a movie. I have the first two on Steelbook. Needless to say, I'm excited as a grown 20-something-year-old man can be for this movie.
Yeah, I think...
About apes.
It's crazy to me that this franchise is like... almost feels like underrated, but I've really loved the first two so far, and I want to see where this goes. I'm very curious, especially now that we have this talk of Matt Reeves, like, oh, I want to do a Batman trilogy. Well, let's see how you do this trilogy, because I've loved the first two.
He's gonna cap it. He's gonna cap it. We were talking about maybe Oscars talks with this finally for certain individuals, but on top of that, these movies, they don't need to be as good as they are, and they are.
Yeah.
Like, these movies are the perfect example that visuals, which this is this series is one of the most visually stunning series. I look at this and I'm like, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
No, they train monkeys. Like the serum is real, and they train those monkeys.
Yeah,
to
but
do
this is
what they need to
a
do.
great example of when, you know, reboots justify their existence. They did this with the thought behind it. They did it like, look, you can readdress the idea of Planet of the Apes and make it about genetic mutations and animal abuse, right? Like that's what this is. It's like we treat animals like shit, so they don't want to be treated that way anymore.
Yeah.
And what it's the way that we treat them right now. It's through scientific studies. It's such a simple entry point to this whole world, but it works, and it's built out into a really thoughtful set of films. So I'm gonna be there first night to see War of the Planet of the Apes. Not only just because it's out next weekend, because there's not a whole lot else out. There's like 4 smaller films that I haven't heard much for. I've seen some trailers on YouTube for Wish Upon, a horror movie. There's Lady Macbeth. There's The Midwife. And Chasing Coral. It's a documentary on the disappearance of coral from around the world.
Chasing Coral was huge at Sundance. They had a VR experience and everything. I know it won. I feel like it's the same. They made this documentary a while ago. It was named a bit differently. Same people made it, but I mean, it was huge in it. I know they guilted a lot of people at Sundance to just be like, "Oh yeah, do you not care about the environment?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh, okay, I'll buy a ticket. It was like one of the very few documentaries people saw, so it won. It may be good. I'll check it out whenever it's on streaming. Lady Macbeth, is it on streaming?
Well, it's gonna be on Netflix on July 14th.
Oh, the type of streaming I do like.
Yeah.
All right, then I'll definitely check it out.
You said something about Lady Macbeth?
Lady Macbeth also came out. I did not get to see that one. Some people said they were bored to death with it.
Yeah.
But
I
the
mean,
premise sounded interesting to me.
I can imagine it being a boring premise, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then the other two, I don't know.
Yeah. New to streaming, Netflix is getting Chasing Coral, as I mentioned, on July 14th, but also To the Bone. This was another movie that was at Sundance
Yes.
this year.
Yes.
Stars Lily Collins as an anorexic woman and Keanu Reeves as her doctor. Art, did you hear anything, or did you get to see it at Netflix?
Yo, that was
Excuse
the
me, at Sundance?
first movie I saw
hey.
at Sundance. Landed on the plane, didn't even go to the hotel, went straight to that screening. I really enjoyed it. I think it is the perfect Netflix movie. Like, I don't think this is a movie because it would be too small and get lost in the theaters. I think this is a movie that you watch at home. If the subject hits home, you're going to adore it.
So, just from the premise, it sounds a little sad, depressing. What kind of tone?
No. Dude, this movie is hysterical. That's the reason why I enjoyed it. My girlfriend saw it, and She has a family member with a history of it, and like it really hit home for her because it's not just covering it from the perspective of the people who are living in this house who have anorexia,
Yeah.
but from the perspective of the family members, like the sister, the stepmom and mom and dad, who are just looking at her like, why can't you be normal? In the sense, it's like, because we're suffering with you. And I think they cover the dynamic perfectly through humor.
Nice.
I haven't seen the trailer because I had seen the movie already, but I
Same.
heard, I don't know if you heard about this, the debate, the debacle about people saying that To the Bone is pro anorexia, that it makes it look funny or something. So I don't know how the trailer was cut, but people are bashing the movie, saying that it's dangerous. Having seen the movie, I can tell you it does not. It laughs at anorexia because that's why I think it's effective. You know how some movies are like, oh, you know, we can't say anything. No,
handles it with humor.
These people who are living in the house laugh at the fact of their condition, and I know to some people that's not their way of going about it. But to me, this made me feel like these were real characters.
Totally.
When they're talking about like, yo, what techniques do you do? He's like, oh yeah, I do a little fist thing. It's like, yeah, just do it under the bed. Just throw up under the bed. Perfect way to hide it. Kitty litter. It's just like, these are real people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And the humor that the family members have of the way that they talk to each other, it's the humor that makes it feel real. And to be honest, I really enjoyed the movie, and I recommend it for anybody to watch. But if it hits home, I think you're really going to, I can't say enjoy, but have it be really impacting because of the humor and how blunt they are, that you're going to be like, yeah, this movie knows what it's doing.
Also coming to Netflix in July 18th, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So if you were one of the 3 people, including me, who missed it in theaters, you'll finally get the chance to catch up.
Have you seen A New Hope?
Which one is that again?
The first, fourth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to call it Rogue One, a redundant story.
Cool.
You know
I'll
what
keep that
happens.
in mind. On Hulu, July 12th, Hump Day, a indie mumblecore-ish type of movie. I think Mark Duplass is in that one. It's actually kind of fun. I liked it.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Melancholia, which is the Lars von Trier depressing two-parter starring Kirsten Dunst and some other famous faces. And Talladega Nights.
Now we're talking.
One of the better Will Ferrell movies from the mid-2000s. And also on Hulu, July 14th, The Sweet Blood of Jesus. It's one of the under-the-radar Spike Lee releases from the last couple of years.
I remember that movie.
Did you see it?
No.
Oh.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But I like Hump Day, and Talladega Nights is good. So if you're a Hulu person,
Sweet Baby
there's
Jesus,
some
yeah.
funny stuff there. My
Check it
girlfriend
out.
loves Melancholia. I still haven't seen it, though. Amazon, July 13th, Mr. Robot Season 2. I recently just caught up with this one
Shut
on
up, for
demand.
real? All right, let's go.
Yeah, Art, you got to get there because
I know, I will.
it's so good. I mean, I do prefer the first season, as I mentioned, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff. Sam Esmail, who is the showrunner here, writes and directs most of these episodes. He's one of the more experimental guys working in TV right now. I think the
luckiest man
first
on earth.
season was very much more of a hook. This season, he's kind of just playing with the world. So it's not necessarily the same vibe, but it's very, very good. I definitely recommend season 2 of Mr. Robot.
Cool.
And then on July 19th on Amazon Prime, Miss Sloane, directed by John Madden and starring Jessica Chastain as a political lobbyist. This one got a pretty solid 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. Art, did you see it?
No, but it always kept appearing. Never saw it.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that was kind of like on the bubble of the Oscar hype last year and just never really seemed to
It just
break
gets
through.
lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's streaming, then maybe I'll watch it. But it never fully intrigued me. But it's not like I didn't want to watch it. Just wanted to watch something else.
Yeah. Oh, July 19th, it is available on Amazon.
I might still watch something else.
Speaking of watching something else, Art, what is your weekly recommendation to the audience?
My weekly recommendation is all 356 Marvel Cinematic movies in order for you to completely understand what is going on in Spider-Man: Homecoming. Now, for me, you may not have the cool looking steelbooks like I do, but in order to catch up for War of the Planet of the Apes, definitely give. Is it War of or War 4?
So this one's War 4. The others are
Okay.
of.
Okay, well then watch the other ofs because they are really good movies. And if anything, what I will be watching, and if you guys want to follow along with me, might be tweeting about them, the original 5.
Oh, nice, nice.
because I want to see how these connect. They've always been on my watch list. My buddy always told me these are really good movies to watch, and I had them. I had rented. I like it's those movies that I rent from the library. Time to return them, and it just happens over and
Yeah,
over
I
again. So
mean,
those are the ones.
they're. I think what are they from the '60s or something? With
Yeah.
some of them have Charlton Heston. Not all of
yeah,
them do.
the first
A lot
one,
of them
but-
have a reputation for being very cheesy.
But they were iconic at the time,
Yeah.
and that twist in the first one is pretty dope.
Yes.
So those are ones that I want to catch up
Yeah,
on.
I'm
but
curious
if
to
not-
hear your opinion on them. Or
Yeah, if you don't want to do all
see you on
five, do the
Twitter.
first two at least. Dope.
Nice. For me, I haven't really had much of a chance over the July 4th holiday to catch up on stuff. I've been mainly on YouTube, so I'm going to recommend a YouTube channel that you probably heard of. The First We Feast channel has a fun interview series called Hot Ones. This is their
yeah.
series where they ask different celebrities interview questions while they try different spicy hot sauce varieties on chicken wings. It's a really fun variety of interview show because it's one of the few interview shows out there that really asks the celebrities to really
Hot
be
questions.
yes, very hot burning. No, it gets the celebrities uncomfortable in a way that they're not on a lot of these shows. I mean, seeing Charlie
It makes them vulnerable. Yeah.
yeah, Charlie Day start to cry from how spicy all this is, or Thomas Middleditch had a pretty funny one where he basically lost control and it was yelling in pain and being Thomas Middleditch. I mean, it's especially with the comedians because they play into how uncomfortable they are. It's really fun just to see how these different celebrities handle that situation. And these are some crazy hot sauces too. This is not they start with sriracha and Tabasco. That's just the appetizers. So
I would never do that.
I want to be on this show, but I don't think we're YouTube famous enough. Maybe one day.
That is not.
So I'll include a link down below to the First We Feast YouTube channel and the Hot Ones playlist. It's a fun way
Which ones do you recommend?
I really love the Nick Kroll one. They have a good back and forth going, but Eric Andre handles it really well too. So
All right, I've yet to see those too, so I'll check those out.
nice. So that's all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter at ZShevich, as well as Instagram at ZShevich as well. Or check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/multiplexshow. I'll be posting some new movie poster stuff shortly, as well as updates on Oscar races. So stay tuned to that channel. Art, where can people find more from you?
You can head on over to www.youtube.com/the A to Z show where I make videos. Or you can head on over to Twitter. You can head on over to Facebook. You can head on over to Instagram if you just want to see pictures. I'm going to try to upload a lot more. I don't really usually do stuff on my Twitter a lot or my Instagram, but I'm going to try to post more stuff now that it's summer, getting out a bit more. Stuff from my Cali trip. But a bunch more videos that are coming out. I'm trying to catch up on a lot of TV shows that take a bit longer, but for movies, I have a couple of videos where I'm dissecting a lot of movies, and definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts about it. Or just go comment on one of my other videos. Go yell at me, go give me some input, or we could just discuss movies in general. So check me out there. If Zach's too busy, I got time for it.
Yeah, you can go watch Art's Minions tribute, which
Go watch my Minions and watch. It'll change your life.
yeah, I'm still mad at him for it. You can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on SoundCloud, soon to be on iTunes, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you to those of you who have. We've been seeing the numbers going up, even though we've been experiencing some technical difficulties and other issues over the past couple of weeks. We're getting this sorted out. This podcast has been a lot of fun to do with Art, getting into the latest discussions, and we're going to take some of your questions on, I think, maybe hopefully our next episode of the show. So
I can't wait.
Please leave your comments down below on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you want to. We'll catch them and address them. But that's all for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember that the sequel to a prequel is just a quell.
See you guys.